Welcome to Roger That Chronicles, where veterans get a chance to talk veteran stuff. Brought to you by veterans. Listen, I just want to throw a little plug in here for the BMO Bank. They sponsored us. They threw a little money at us, stuff like that to help us out. Located on Highway 14 in Crystal Lake. And if you need any banking needs, go right in there and talk to Joe Pellegrino. Anyway, welcome. My name is Rick Prescott.
My name is Jason Hertha, also a Marine Corps veteran. And if you like what you hear and see visually, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the bell notification for future videos on YouTube. Helps out with the algorithm. And you could also check us out on our podcast area, Apple, Twitch, Twitter, Spotify. And we want to thank our producers, 216 The Net, Drew Cappuccino over there, and then the apprentice behind the camera over there, Kelsey. One-handed clap. That's my plug.
And I'm Mike Ruffner, a Marine veteran. So we're going to introduce Chris Kasperski, Army vet, Afghanistan, and is presently studying at the
Trinity Evangelical Divinity School,
That's right.
located in Deerfield, Illinois.
So let's start out with your career with the Army, blown up stuff in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And then you can tell how much you can tell Jason how much you improved the area after he had left.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me on. It's really an honor to be here with a few jarheads here, and sitting with some devil dogs. I had to bring my angel dog here just to kind of balance it out, So, but yeah, I joined the Army. I specifically wanted to go find those roadside bombs because I kept watching the news reports about, how they were killing and maiming our troops over there. And I knew that would be a really important job to do a combat job, but also, have something where I was trying to make a difference on the battlefield there.
Right on.
Yeah.
What made you join the Army?
So my cousin was a Marine. He was in 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. His platoon was one of the first platoons to cross the border into Iraq to kick the war off there. Fought all the way up to Baghdad, was there when the Saddam statue toppled. And then he got sent back to Iraq about a year or two later and was there in Husayba, Iraq, which is in by the Syrian border. And they had Medal of Honor Corporal Jason Dunham. That incident happened from his unit while he was out there. And so I was really inspired. I actually really wanted to join the Marine Corps. And he told me that if, I wanted to do that specific job, he suggested going to the Army because he knew I could lock it into my contract and just guarantee that I could do that. And so I went into the Army recruiter, signed up with my stepbrother. Him and I went down to basic training together. And I actually scored really high in the ASVAB exam. And so they offered me every job that the Army had to offer. And I was like, no, I want to go do combat engineer stuff.
That's wild.
Yeah. And so when we got down to basic training, I got pulled into another room and they threw at me the defense language aptitude battery exam where they throw a gibberish language at you.
Oh, yeah.
And I was one of 2 recruits to pass that test. So they brought me to another room and were like, we want you to be a linguist. And I was like, sorry, I want to go find roadside bombs. So, you want to do that until you get over there and start doing it. And then you realize that it's really no joke over there. And
it's all business. When you're there,
it's all
right?
business.
Yeah, I remember finding a few roadside bombs, but not intentionally.
Yeah.
They went off in our convoy. I was like, holy shit.
Yep. Sometimes
Wow.
they find you first, but it was our job to go over there and poke around at the sand and try to find the needles in the haystack, so to speak.
Wow.
So
Where did you go to boot camp?
I went to boot camp in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, sort of in the Ozarks area. And it's one station unit training. So you do your basic training and then you do your AIT training all in one. So my drill sergeant's flip the light switch off, flipped it back on. We're about face again. Congratulations, you're in AIT. So yeah, that was fun. I always tell people that look to join the military that basic training is not easy, but it's a ton of fun. So as long as you keep the right perspective in mind.
That's true. I can't say that it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't that much fun.
That was
Funnest
3 months
time
of pure
was
hell.
Yeah, but think about it.
Yeah.
You're doing this thing with exercise, lose weight. you would probably pay to go back there right now because you know they'll take weight.
Yeah.
I was 165 out of boot camp.
Yeah, it was interesting because a lot of like the heavier guys lost weight and the thinner guys like me gained weight. We all kind of like met in this middle and we're all just, yeah, especially being a combat job, they really were trying to prepare us to go straight overseas to Afghanistan. So when I actually graduated from basic in AIT, my orders didn't come in because I was supposed to go to airborne school, and my orders originally were for Hawaii, and I was like,
I got Hawaii.
I wanted to go to Hawaii so bad. And so my drill sergeants were like, you're just going to go to airborne school. They're going to recut your orders and you're going to go somewhere else. And so I was like, all right, I guess I want to go to Hawaii more than I want to go to airborne school. I'll jump out of a perfectly good airplane in Hawaii if I want to.
Good idea.
And so I went and I like dropped the airborne from my contract, which apparently reset my orders anyway. And so my orders got reprocessed, lost out on Hawaii, lost out on airborne school, was stuck in basic training holdover area for like almost 2 weeks. And then when my orders finally came in, they're like, well, good news is you get to leave today. Bad news is you're not going to Hawaii. You're going to Fort Drum, New York, in the in the snow belt up there north of Syracuse by the Canadian border. They're like,
What part of the year?
I got there in June. Sort of an interesting side note. I had snuck out of the basic training base to buy an engagement ring for my wife. And so I was like prepared to propose to her on graduation day, and that day didn't come around for us. And so I, finally popped a question to her, and we go to get married because I was living in Lake County. That's where my home record was. And so I went to the Lake County courthouse to get married really quick before I report to the duty station. And they're like, sorry, there's no judges available to marry you here. So we got sent next door to Lake County jail. And we walked into Lake County jail and got married in Lake County jail, where the judge stopped a bond hearing for a man that was accused of murdering his wife.
Oh, sweet.
And so, yeah, we like to say that we walked into Lake County jail happier than most people do. I don't know about walking out though, Yeah, but.
So you're up in New York. You're along the Canadian border. So you're up by not far from Toronto, Lake Ontario,
All
Buffalo,
that area.
New York area, and so you probably got nailed with the lake effect snow off of Lake Ontario.
Yeah, they would have egress doors on the second floors of the houses up there. If you could just jump out the second floor and get out of the snow. Yeah, it was crazy.
They get snow in that area of New York. Yeah. They get snow.
We would have Army soldiers from Alaska come to do their snow training at Fort Drum because sometimes in Alaska they just wouldn't get enough snow.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I figured Alaska would definitely get the temperatures.
Yeah.
But wow.
Yeah. So I reported there 3 days after we got married in jail, and they were like, "Don't even unpack your bags. You're going to Afghanistan." And I was like, "Whoa, okay." Am I going to get any training before I go? And the sergeant's like, the best kind of training's on the job. And I was like, the job's finding roadside bombs, right? And he's like, yeah, I hope you're good at it. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So where did you go to school for that? On the job training?
Yeah.
Afghanistan
was, school of Kandahar. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah. My unit deployed about a month before I did. I was a holdover. So I did like a little bit of like cultural sensitivity training, and like they had a mock IED lane in Fort Drum for us to walk through. But other than that, it was basically just get your medical ready and get you going overseas.
Wow.
So.
Now I had a buddy of mine that was in policing, and he went to IDENT, which is the check out the bodies and fingerprints and all this kind of stuff, photographs, you process scenes. And he got into the bomb element. They sent him to school for months to investigate bomb explosions, put everything back together again, and how to set them up. And he was a bomb expert. He was an expert on the subject area. They didn't do that with you?
Well, in your AIT training, we were learning how to do route clearance and
we did that. We poked around for mines.
Poked around. Yep, exactly.
We did that.
It's basically poking around the sand with a stick or using a metal detector.
Right.
And that was, and then mostly it was like, combat training on, doing like the small arms combat style training. Yeah.
You figured there'd be a lot more to it than that with the complexities and everything else that these guys are using these days.
Yeah.
With remotes and
Yeah.
wires and.
Well,
No.
when we got to
Wow.
Afghanistan, we had like 2 weeks of sort of training there on their IED, alleys and stuff to
Right.
like figure it all out. And then we were doing like mock missions in our trucks and stuff before we rolled out for the big one. But
Yeah.
and that big one was a big one. So
Wow. So what years did you serve in the Army?
it's 2009 to 2012.
And what year were you, or years were you in Afghanistan?
2009, 2010.
My, oh my. So in Afghanistan, you went to Kandahar.
Yep.
What was your responsibilities in general sense? What was your unit's responsibility? What did you guys do?
So we were clearing the main highway, which is Highway 1, from the city of Kandahar all the way down to basically Fort Leatherneck, where the Marines were stationed out in Helmand
It would have been
Province.
Fort Leatherneck. It would have been Camp
Leatherneck. That's
There
right.
you go.
Yeah.
Marine.
Yeah,
We're
that's right.
sensitive to that type
Yeah,
of thing.
that's true. You guys
Yeah.
don't like fortifications, I
Or
guess.
things you stay in one place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
You like
yeah,
moving around.
Yeah, it was Camp Leatherneck, Camp Bastion, and
Yeah.
then we had like our fobs that we would stay on.
I'm
and stuff.
sorry. That's why they gave us crayons, things like that. It's,
Yeah,
You
well,
you guys just. bunch
It's
of-
it's an Army term, I guess. We always had the
it goes back way back when.
way back.
Yeah. Custer days.
Well, even before that, that's before even George Washington's day.
We'll eventually get to this family heritage.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, just you wait.
No, that's fantastic. So you guys did from Kandahar all the way to Camp Leatherneck.
Yep.
What kind of a range is that? What are we looking at? Distance?
So you're probably looking at
How many kilometers, miles?
like 200 kilometers, I think.
Goodness, that's a big region.
Yeah. And then and there was many, offshoot areas that we would go up and down. But there's like the main highway that's there. And then everything else is basically just, dirt roads, sand roads,
Wow.
things like that.
Chris, the other night you were talking about, the arrangements you had with the Marines and the Navy SEALs and some of the crap that they try to do. Enlighten the rest of them.
Yeah, one of the things that would really frustrate us is like the Taliban knew exactly what our vehicles looked like and what we were doing, driving so dang slow through the desert.
Oh, it's not that hard to see a Humvee and all that stuff. So
Yeah, well, they know like our up armored vehicles, the Buffalo and the RGs and stuff that we had, and we had these 2 trucks called the Huskies that were just single man vehicles that would have like an arm on it that would look underneath like the culverts and stuff. And then they would have like metal detectors or ground penetrating radar. And so we would go really slow, try fighting these bombs. Oftentimes they would then wait till we passed, rounded the corner, and then lay out an IED, which could take 5-10 minutes at that. And so we then started teaming up with the Marines and Navy SEALs that were in our area. And so they would hang back and we'd start clearing, and then they'd come roaring in right behind and then try to get into a tick with the Taliban there. And then the Taliban decided, well, they didn't want to fight them. They figured that they just fight us instead. So then we would call them, they'd call them, and, so we worked very, very much hand in hand with, both the men's department and the ladies department of the Navy. So, yeah.
talking about the SEALs, right?
Yeah. I mean, even the SEALs, I think, would say, I don't really want to get into a fight with a bunch of devil dogs.
That's Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we first did our first mission when we went out. We were in Jalalabad or J-Bad, which is like the second biggest city or whatever. And this is back in 2004. So like when our unit touched down over there, I get out, we're waiting at the airport, which is only, I believe, 10 minutes away from what I remember. And it's like, yeah, this is the real shit going on over here. Like I'm actually in Afghanistan because like a 20-hour flight, well, multiple flights that took around 24 hours to get to. Then we go out on our first mission, took about 3 hours going up to Kandahar. And like right at the very end of it, we got IED'd. So then we had to stop, and luckily nobody got killed, but we had one of the bombs blow off, and one of the guys that was attached to us, this Army guy, I believe the window blew out or whatever and got like shrapnel or glass in his face and all that stuff. But it was like superficial stuff. It wasn't anything all that bad, but we had to get a medevac. And then that was the first night after we set up our little cordon and all that stuff. went on my first patrol and I had to take point. It was at nighttime and all that stuff too. So they're like, yeah, Hertha, you're going to be taking point. I'm like, I'm like a boot.
Yeah.
So like, all right. So I'm going to be leading this patrol here and all this stuff, night vision, all that stuff. Yeah. Scared out of my mind, all that. But, well, it turned out okay because I'm still here in one piece.
Yeah.
So
Amen. Amen to that. My first mission was wild. We rolled out on September 11th of all days. So we were all kind of on edge thinking that, all right, well, here's an anniversary date. They're going to hit us really hard. And they sent us down what they called the most IED route in all of Afghanistan. And so we go down there and it was like quiet. It was like nothing going on. And we had a 7-day long mission. So we were kind of like gypsies out in the desert. We just kind of go out there and, go from fob to fob or, small base or whatever. And day 5 of the mission, we had this epic sandstorm roll in. I mean, just massive. And it caused our trucks the next morning to start breaking down as soon as we were rolling out on the mission. And so my job, I was basically just a dismount. So I was just riding in the back of the truck, kind of just getting used to the territory and stuff. And we had 2 trucks break down. So we pulled over to this Afghan gas station, and it was my first time that I had ever like gotten out of the truck outside the wire. And now I'm like pulling security and there's this crowd surrounding, our trucks, just figuring out what's going on. And we had gotten everything hooked up and decided that we were just going to call it a day and roll back to this base, which we were not even maybe 5-6 kilometers away from this thing. So we knew it was just going to be a quick jog to get back there. And we just, refit over there and, do another day. Well, as we're driving back, we were going even slower than we normally would go. So I'm sitting in the back of this RG-31, gun truck, and we come to this abandoned Afghan gas station. There's like nothing there anymore. And my team leader says to my driver, he's like, hey, maintain the spacing with the vehicles, pull forward a little bit. And so the vehicle pulls up, and I'm watching. We had our Buffalo, which is like the biggest truck the Army has. It's larger than a fire truck, and it's like 60,000 pounds. And this thing, has this massive arm on it that will go and dig up the bombs and everything when we find them. And so the driver of the Buffalo pulls it forward to maintain spacing, and right where my truck was sitting, I watched the roadway just bubble like a pizza and pop. And this 50,000, 60,000 pound truck went flying about 40, 50 feet up in the air and landed upside down like it was a toy. It ended up being the largest IED in the war's history up to that point.
Wow.
And we called out the IED. I unbuckled and got out of the truck. And by the time my boots hit the ground, I had asphalt still raining down, landing on my helmet. And so my team leader got out. He started searching for secondary IEDs because usually the Taliban will want to hit you when you get out of your truck. So like they'll hit you once, then you're out of the truck, and then they'll set off like a daisy chain or something else like that. And so he started searching around for that, and I went booking it straight to the Buffalo. Well, the Buffalo is upside down now. All the egress hatches on the roof are now on the ground, and the only way to get into this truck now is the rear hatch that you normally get in at. And so, we'd have combat locks on the inside of our trucks, so that way you couldn't open them from the outside and throw a grenade in. And so fortunately, the truck commander, he was hurt, but he wasn't as banged up as the others were. And so he crawled over everybody, unlocked the combat lock, and I started pulling the door open. Well, then the debris would build up underneath this door, and I'd have to close it, and start digging like a dog. And meanwhile, like the platform that you climb up and down onto when the truck's upright is where the fuel tank is. So now it's above my head, and it's just raining JP8 diesel fuel on me. And I'm digging and digging, trying to get this door open. And finally, we got it pried open enough where, I can sneak in there. And we had to put the heaviest guys in my platoon into this truck. And I was the skinniest guy in the platoon. And so I had to start rolling these guys on spine boards. I could hear them screaming bloody murder in there. And we started pulling them out. And one by one, we started putting IVs in their arms, doing our combat lifesaver skills. I had just learned this stuff, you know, and I get in to go get the last guy out, who's the driver. His name is Jeremiah Monroe, and I found him pinned underneath the vehicle. He was dead. And that was tough for me because he bought me my first drink when I turned 21. Yeah, bought me a 21 shot Long Island iced tea.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That did it. So yeah, I mean, when I first got to Afghanistan, the second day I was there, I had to go to a ramp ceremony where 3 Marines were killed in the same area we would be operating in. And now coming back to Kandahar after this mission, now we're on the plane putting his transfer case on the plane. And that was tough because that was my welcome to Afghanistan. You know, losing a guy in your first mission was just brutal. And we all were just kind of terrified after that because, you know, you get hit by something that big, you don't think you're going to survive a year of this. And so, yeah, that was tough. And then, you know, like the very next mission, we got sent to like, you know, a softball mission to go to the Pakistan border and back. And that was rough because the AC went out on my truck. So I was like, I just want to walk the whole way. And then the next mission after that, my platoon sergeant was blown up for his first time. Next mission after that, I was blown up for my first time. So I was blown up 3 times while I was over there, and ended up having back injuries and everything else. So that's why I was medically retired when I got out. So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, when you go through a serious event and all that, you know, once it kind of pops the combat cherry and all that, it's like, yeah, definitely, this is the real shit. So like when we got ambushed in a town called Dawit Shah, I think it was like in the Korengal Valley area, but yeah, so you know, it was like a 3-day ordeal, but like the main ambush was the second day, and so you had like a rock face right here, and you know, you had the route, and then you had the mountains where the Russians, I believe, built like bunkers and all that stuff, but then the Afghans were taking over that, you know, years later. So then they were shooting from the mountains, trying to, you know, blow up our convoy and all that stuff. And yeah, it was pretty hair raising for sure, because I had the 203 with the M16 at the time, just spraying and praying, like I don't know where the hell I'm shooting and all that stuff.
Sprayed and praying.
Yeah. So I think from what I was told, we killed like 3 insurgents, and luckily, thank God, none of us got killed or any of that type of stuff, because we also did have a bunch of it was a little bit of a smaller convoy, but we had the machine gunners with us, we had State Platoon with us, or some of the guys from State Platoon. So I believe one of the guys' name was Sergeant Stanton. I forgot what his first name was, but
Sergeant.
Yeah, Sergeant's first. Heavily tatted guy, and it was weird because I think he had like I think he had hand tattoos or something, and like that wasn't allowed back in the day, but maybe it was a different, you know, sort of rule for State Platoon and all that, because they could do whatever they want basically. But yeah, I got to see if I could track that guy down. But yeah, that was pretty wild and stuff. And you know, after that moment, like every time we go back over there or go on a patrol and all that, it's like, yeah, you know, the shit's definitely hitting the fan. So, or the shit gets real, or especially when you start doing, you know, mine clearing, but you just get on, you know, a row and start walking.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies like, man, I hope I don't win this game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody's gonna get
But
one.
nobody won the game, so that's good. So
well, my nephew, Rocky Mims, his name, he lives in Michigan, was in that region, in Kandahar region, and I remember talking to him on the phone at one time, and he said it was so darn cold up in the mountains that he actually passed out. Went unconscious from the cold. We had
a guy pass out and doing missions up in the mountains and all that. Yeah, we were flown up in there. We're gonna do looking for a high value target, but of course, intel is always wonderful. So fly up in the mountains on the, I think it was a 47, 46 or 47, one of the, you know, double rotor helix and shit.
Chinook,
Yeah, Chinook. Then we actually there was like barely any landing area, so we had to like hover. And then we just all jumped out, and there's like snow up to our knees and stuff. And then the first, you know, we set up the perimeter, and then it was one of the other squads with 3rd Platoon that went into room clear, but we had one guy pass out, and it was just like, you know, running all over the place, slipping and sliding ice and stuff. My hands were frozen. we had a couple people from the Army that were attached to us. There was, I think, 2 women with a saw, which was, I was like, all right, cool.
That would have been cool.
But they all passed out like quickly. So, but yeah, it was complete, organized chaos as usual with any of that type of stuff. So we stayed up there for a couple days, occupied a house, but we were nice first. But I remember leaving. We got up on top of this house, and then the Chinook came by, dropped it, and then we all went right up in there. And I believe if you look, there's a meme saying that Marines still make house calls. That was part of our mission, where you have the Chinook, and I got photos of it too, of them standing on the house to go up or go down and all that stuff. So, oh yeah, great times up in the mountains. So,
Yeah, right on. So your experience sounds pretty profound. I mean, it was a first mission.
Yeah.
And what a way to, welcome to combat.
Yeah.
I mean,
See the
there's
elephant right
no
away.
ease into it. Let's just slam your face right against the truck.
yep.
Yeah.
So that's something.
That was tough, but we knew that we had a job to do, and you weren't going to pull any one of us out of there. Like, a lot of us were walking wounded. We were still going with it all. I mean, it was really hard to
Still dedicated, focused on mission.
Yeah, we didn't want to leave our brothers out there, and plus you only get this chance to get in combat. It's very, very few and far between, when you finally get to go over there. And so none of us wanted to squander that and, get back to the States and become non-deployable or anything else like that.
Right. So
we weren't going to squander that. We wanted to do our job for our country, For me, it really was, that epitome of taking care of the people to your left and to your right, because any of us can get blown up. And it's not just like the guys in my platoon. It was all of us that were there in country. We were there to make sure we were taken care of, whether you were Marine, Air Force, Army.
we're all Americans.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. So in contrast, like there was probably a reason why you went into the military, and then now you have the benefit of that experience and the reasons why you continue to serve. I mean, you just described that really well. What was the reason? Why did you join the military in the first place? Why? What encouraged you? What was your inspiration?
So my cousin's service in the Marines was a big one.
That was it. Okay.
I also have a lot of family that's fought, from the Revolutionary War all the way up. So I was really inspired by their service as well. And I knew that joining the military would be, an opportunity that I couldn't get anywhere else. So, I mean, for all those reasons and more,
So your family goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War?
Yeah, not only that, but I'm actually directly related to Benjamin Franklin.
Go away.
Yeah. So he's his
Like
grandfather.
the Benjamin Franklin, father,
Benjamin Franklin.
signatory on the.
Yeah. His grandfather is my 10th great grandfather.
Is
So
that
he's
right?
my first cousin, 11 generations removed. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, did any of your family write the 7 years ago? Anything like that? No.
No, that was Abraham.
That was I know that.
He's easily confused.
Yeah. we're talking
No, that's
7 years after all that had happened.
Those are hillbilly.
No,
my
that's amazing. Really.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you were able to track that lineage back to Ben Franklin.
Yeah, my family had already known, because you go in my family tree and it's like Franklin's going all the way up. I get Kasperski from my dad, but the Franklin side's from my mom.
Right.
And so we had already known that we had this connection, but then when I started doing the genealogy stuff, I was able to just trace it like right all the way up.
That
easily.
is slick. That's cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's my guy. He's probably like my favorite of.
Well, he's all of our
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah.
Probably rolling over his grave right now, the way things are going on in the United States.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a republic if we can keep it, and we're not keeping it very well. So that's you're probably right about that.
Well, it's up to people like us to sustain it.
Yep.
It's to at least sustain the republic. Understand there's conflict.
Yeah.
It's the way it is, but we need to sustain it.
Yeah, well, it's every generation's responsibility to
Right.
pass the baton to the next one.
Right.
Know?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So tell us about some of your family. You had mentioned Vicksburg and Shiloh the other night.
yeah,
What?
yeah. So my second great grandfather fought in the Civil War He was in the 16th Regiment of Wisconsin Infantry. So his first battle was Shiloh, and his company was the first company that was attacked when the Confederates came rushing through their camps.
So they were the ones that were surprised by
Yeah. And he survived that battle. He actually joined with his best friend.
barely survived it.
Barely
He
survived it.
all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Survived that one, was in the Battle of Corinth, then ended up doing Sherman's March to the Sea. He was in Vicksburg, and then he did Sherman's March to the Sea.
So he joined the Sherman campaign shortly thereafter.
Yep. Yeah. So he was all over the place. I've tracked every single place that he went to, and I've got him like all pinned on my map. So
I
can,
can't
go visit.
imagine what that guy experienced.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Ulysses S. Grant's.
Yep.
That was the thing that changed him.
Yeah.
That was the thing that
Shiloh.
changed the direction of the war right there.
Well, Grant was actually fired basically after
Yep.
Shiloh.
Right.
And then, but later on, it was William Tecumseh Sherman that convinced Grant to come back. So he went back home and basically sulking after that. And Grant ends up coming back, becoming the main general for Vicksburg, which turned the tide of the whole war there.
Right. And Lincoln really wanted him. Said,
Yeah.
hey, this guy fights.
Yep.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
One of my plans this year is to go down to Shiloh.
So,
I want to hit Shiloh and check out that.
Yeah.
So.
It's so cool. I mean, you'll go there for like the first day battle, and you'll see like there's this guy Peabody was his name, and it was Peabody's brigade, and that's where my grandfather's camp was. And like I said, the Confederates just rushed through, pushed them all back.
Wow.
And then the next day, Grant Sherman tells Grant, "Well, we've had the devil's own day, haven't we?"
That's right.
And he says, "I'll lick them tomorrow,
Yeah,
won't we?"
because tomorrow's another day.
Yep, and that's what they did.
That's what they did.
They got
the troops were
reinforcements.
amazed because they said, if we're going to head north, we're going to do exactly what all the armies have ever done when they got their butts kicked.
Yep.
If we're going to go south, we're going to continue to fight.
Yeah.
And they were amazed when he said, go that way.
Yeah.
They were heading toward Corinth.
Yep.
You
They
know?
did. I went down to Corinth too. If you go to Shiloh, you have to go to Corinth because they're so close together,
Oh, yeah.
and you could still see the intersection of the railroad tracks. And so
Seriously?
I went there. Oh yeah.
Oh, man,
And
I
so I
gotta
went
go.
down there. I was standing right in the middle of it all. And, I'm just such a big history
So you're
buff.
connected to that as well.
Yep.
Man alive. What a heritage.
Yeah. And so I wanted to just keep that heritage going. And, my younger brother's still serving. He's serving in the Air Force right now. So I make sure to poke fun at him as much as I can for that. But he asked me for my opinion. I was like, hey, if you want just an easy job, join the Air Force. And so he's an F-16 fighter jet mechanic. So
So your family have been serving in our armed forces, serving the country since the Revolutionary War, right through the Civil War, through probably the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, the
World Wars,
Vietnam War, World War
Vietnam.
I and II,
Yep.
etc. So
Yeah.
you got everybody in all of those.
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty slick, man.
Yeah. So I couldn't have the war on terror be unserved. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Had to do
somebody's
your
got to
part.
do it. Might as well be me.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell us about your new war. We've got.
Yeah. So when we got home from Afghanistan, just about all of us were diagnosed with, post-traumatic stress and moral injury, which is something that I later learned about. I joined the Army to find those roadside bombs. I didn't necessarily want to, go out there and be taking lives, but when those things happen, they happen, and so you have to start squaring that stuff with your moral convictions. And I was struggling for a long while. I really was, to be honest. My best friend in the Army committed suicide a few weeks after I was medically retired. He was having seizure problems, and he was staying at our house, and I was taking care of him. And then my orders came in. I had to leave, and he went back to the barracks and woke up from a seizure one day, and then just decided that he was going to take his life. And so then, we've had a lot of these cases with guys that I had served with in Afghanistan that just started either taking their own lives or were killed in some, stupid way. And so I was like, well, we've got to stop this. And then after the pullout in Afghanistan, that really wrecked us. I mean, I was not in good shape when that whole thing happened. And so I started working with a service dog organization. So I've got my service dog here below me. And that was helping a bit, but I still had a piece that was missing. And so then I started reading my Bible and started going to church, started, praying and, doing all these things. And my life just started to turn around. And so I was like, okay, well, God, if this is what you want me to do, let me know. And I just felt the calling that I wanted to, just, gave it all to God and said, all right, well, how could I help still serve and help fellow veterans and things like that? And he, I was praying on it, and he told me, you can be a chaplain. So I'm in school right now studying. I'm going for a dual master's degree. One's in master's in divinity, which is what like most pastors get. And then I'm going for a master's in chaplaincy ministry care. So my goal is to work at the VA as a chaplain and just help other veterans. And having the combat experience that I have, it's kind of a key to get in with many other combat veterans, because many of them don't want to talk to you if you haven't been there, done that, and gotten a t-shirt, So, it's been such a blessing for me to be able to help start taking care of and ministering to my fellow vets and, getting them.
Have you ever heard of a Silouan Green?
Sorry, say that again?
Silouan Green?
No.
I think it's Silhoun. Anyway, he was a Marine officer that lives in southern Indiana. And he was going through flight training, and his instructor wanted to get back. They were doing flight ops off the coast, and they had to fly back to Oceania. So he wanted to get out, and it was in the storm. Well, on their way back, they had one of the engines flamed out, and they had to punch out. And the last thing he remembered before going into a coma was he watched his flight instructor split a tree in half.
Mm.
And of course, he was all messed up. He got medically retired. But that's what he does now, is that his dad was a minister down in southern Indiana. But anyway, he goes around, and if he gets a call from a vet, no matter where they're at, he'll jump on his motorcycle and go where they're at to, minister to them so they don't commit the suicide.
Yeah.
Patty Klopp is one that turned me on to him. We actually had him come up here a couple of times to speak.
Patty Klopp is a colonel in the U.S. Marines.
Okay.
And her experience, we had her on the show here, and her experience was amazing. But that's pretty much what she did. When she went through, I think, the Road Home Project, was it?
Mm-hmm.
The Road Home program?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was it that one, or was it another one?
She didn't go through the road.
She said it gave her she got her life back.
Yeah.
Those are the words that she used, and it sounds to
She
me
was
like you're getting your life back by
I
finding this.
think it was
Yeah.
through the VA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Was it through the VA?
Yeah. That's
She
right.
went out
Yeah.
to Ohio.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because level over here, I don't think they have. It's just for like combat vets and all that stuff, and that's what I went through. I think it was building 6 or 7, because one of them's for drugs, the other one's for PTSD. I had the PTSD thing,
Yeah.
not the drug stuff, but yeah, I mean that's great that there's definitely a need for more clergymen and spiritual services in that aspect, because you have the experience, and people are going to find that, and veterans who have combat related stressors are going to hold you more credible than someone who doesn't, or because sometimes like you go to the VA and you talk to a social worker and they have no combat experience whatsoever, they're civilian. And not to discredit it, is that they do have some good tools and stuff, and I have talked to some good civilians, but I feel more comfortable speaking to someone who has that experience. And when it comes to finding your calling and all that, like, you don't got to go looking for it; it will come to you.
Right.
And I am a firm believer. I don't even believe it. I know the Lord works in very mysterious ways. So like, you will have these weird coincidences, coinkydinks, all that stuff going on, and you'd be like, wow, that was definitely not by chance. So it's like,
Right.
your higher power, whatever it may be, is always communicating with you. Always listen to it. Listen to your heart, your intuition, or whatever it is, because it will lead you to the right path. And it's just incredible. But the thing is, we got to practice getting out of our own way. As Rick said over there, let God in. I do a little meditation every morning where like practice getting out of my own way and letting, my higher power come in and speak to me. Sometimes, I don't make the right decisions all the time, but that's a great thing about forgiveness is that no matter what I do, I'm always forgiven and, go back and try it again. But for the most part, it won't lead you astray. And always listen to your intuition because it's always speaking with you.
And being a chaplain, you're on the front lines of ministry is what we call it. And so it doesn't really matter to me what your religious affiliation, even if you don't have one.
Right.
It's really more of a ministry of presence. And so you're there helping people in some of the roughest times of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sometimes they just need somebody to be there with them.
Right.
They don't even need you to talk sometimes. They just want you to sit there and just be there with them while they're going through some rough stuff.
Absolutely.
And to be able to do that for fellow veterans to me would be the most rewarding thing,
Yeah, and even like if someone has, let's say like they're I don't know, agnostic or atheist or whatever, to me, even if somebody claims that, there's still some sort of guiding force within everybody. And I was reading something yesterday about archetypes. Like we all play a certain archetype in life, whether it be the good guy or the bad guy, but everything has its purpose because we need to have that contrast. So like, again, if we look at someone that's bad, well, maybe they're fulfilling their purpose as showing contrast and maybe something I need to find within myself where I can practice peace and compassion on that person because I don't know what they
You're talking yin and yang? Is that what you're thinking here?
Well, yeah, but not to get that further into it. Like I'm saying, Lord works in very mysterious ways. So
I just had to finish reading this book for my chaplaincy course, and it was on the army chaplain that was ministering to the Nazi war criminals during the Nuremberg trial.
Right. I mean, that'd be rough right there.
I mean, can you imagine?
How do you come to terms with that?
Yeah. But I mean, his name is Chaplain Garricky, and he did such an amazing job that, at the end, these Nazis many of them were repenting and were, trying to like make peace with what was going to happen because they're all going to be hung, or many of them were.
Right.
And even after he got done doing that job, he went and served in a prison ministry.
Right.
And when he passed away, the prisoners asked a special request to have his casket come to the prison, and they did a service for him there at the prison. I mean, it's something that you just really never hear of, but you can touch people's lives that way.
Absolutely.
And so there's some awesome chaplains out there. One of them that I really highly respect is a guy that was in Black Hawk Down. He's like one of the main guys that's featured in it. Mm-hmm. And Jeff Strucker is his name. And he was a, Army Ranger sergeant that was, driving like the lead vehicle through, the streets of Mogadishu.
Yeah.
And he was the one that was like encouraging the other soldiers to go back out there when they had to keep going, back and forth to the city. And after he was done with Mogadishu, he later became a chaplain. And he's also like, he won the best ranger competition, which they just had a few days ago. Oh, wow. So, I mean, he is one of like the most amazing, like qualified chaplains that you can find. And he teaches a couple chaplain courses that I've been like taking online and stuff too. So, they're really cool.
Well, the role of chaplain is amazingly, incredibly important. I was a police officer.
Okay.
And I joined through our union. I joined a program, I volunteered for it, to be one of the peer referral agents, if you will, in the event that somebody sustained or suffered an incident. And an incident, a critical incident, would have been one where you face death and so on, and then it has the potential of generating PTSD and et cetera. So our training was very thorough. We not only took the college courses, but we had a chaplain, and the chaplain had so much experience in his field, and he was a priest. He was a Catholic priest. Fascinating man. And we had an incident where police and fire and ambulance, they were involved in a coal mine cave-in. 29 miners were killed in Pictou area of Nova Scotia, and we went to support. And the situation, here we are, we're dealing with these people, and they're telling their critical stories in terms of that mine collapsing. I'm trying to dig in there because my brother's in that mine, and they're all coal miners. And these ambulance people are just a mess because of the totality of circumstances. It was just very overwhelming. 29 people. It was a disaster. It was a community disaster. And we got stuck at one point. This guy went to such a height of his emotional experience that it was beyond anything that any of us could control. I had no idea how to deal with it. All he could talk a mile a second. And he just went on and on. You could tell he was about ready to collapse. But this priest just very nonchalantly put his arm around him, and he just looked at the rest of us. Guys, just calm down. And we just he walked him out, and he ended up taking him to the hospital.
Yeah.
But we had no idea what to do. He needed to be sedated. But that the priest side of it, that nurturing side of it, that calling that he had, the God element, all of those things were there that none of us could relate to, and he saved the day.
Yeah. And
he brought that entire meeting back into some form of, took the chaos out of it.
Yeah.
And so that was my experience in the priesthood, and I followed that guy for years after that, up until he passed away, and it just. I learned something from that. That priest element is incredibly important for all of us.
Yeah, and I think you don't just have to be a priest or a pastor too to be able to express empathy and take care of people and look after your battle buddies, things like that. I think it's something that we all need to do, and we all need to do an even better job at.
Right.
Once you guys know, like once you separate out of the military, everybody goes their separate directions. And so like I have one really close friend that I was deployed with, and he's in prison right now, and I'm the only one in my unit that's speaking with him. And I have to, like, he was there with me. He saved my life. I've saved his life. And regardless if you're in prison or not, I'm going to visit you. I'm going to take care of you. And I think that's how we can honor God, is by treating our fellow man with the dignity and respect that they all deserve.
No matter who he is.
No matter who they are. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to our meeting the other night. And I'm going to think kind of relate it to some of the other outside conversations we've been having recently, but it's having a command presence. People talk about why should somebody join a veterans organization? Well, if you have a positive command presence, people are attracted to something. If it's chaos, they already have chaos. Why come? But you look at any priest or chaplain, if they have a command presence, people are gravitated towards those individuals to move forward, no matter what it is, whether it's a veterans organization or running for politics. It's what kind of presence you bring. And the biggest thing that I think our peers, other veterans, is that they spend more time talking and diagnosing other veterans when they should just be quiet and listen. And at the same time, just because you went through a specific PTSD program doesn't mean it's the same for Jason or you or you, because there's different programs out there, and it's just what flips that switch that helps that individual. It's not cookie cutter. It's never going to be cookie cutter because of personality, diversity, and everything else of the different people. But what we have is our own peers go there. Well, I went through this PTSD program, and you got PTSD, and you got PTSD. What do you know?
Or the buzzword, oh, that person's a narcissist. Like, what? Enough with these buzzwords already. Like, chill.
But it's, having that presence. The one, I was joking with, Pedersen. I was joking with her last night because she goes to all these events. I was at a political thing last night, and she's sitting there and she's not talking anyway. She's just listening. I says, after 15 years, you probably know all these people. You have no more stories to tell. But the thing is, I go to these events, and I don't really care about the engagement part. I want to see what's going on, the personalities out there, and kind of figure before you engage with anybody. And the chaplain's got to do the same thing. You can, just can't jump into it. You kind of really know what the groundwork is, and are they ready to be heard?
Well, you mentioned that it's important that all of us become that nurturing element. And what I think we who may need that nurturing element from time to time will look for others, but we will always find it. We know we'll always find it in a chaplain.
Yeah.
Because that's your
Keep
job.
calling us.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
What?
Well, speaking of I mean, like, I could just give you a hug and nurture you like a little.
You hug me, I will beat you with a stick.
Look, you need to express your feelings and just chill out. When they give you a hug, just roll with it. Just roll.
I don't need to express my feelings.
I'm gonna let the
My-
devil dogs
Ask
fight.
Laura.
Look at me. I am fine the way I am.
Why are you raising your voice?
I don't know.
Nobody listens.
Because you want to.
You need some nurture. man.
Right.
Because everybody always wants to hug me. I don't know why they want to hug me. What
Because-
is it like?
Because you just have a welcoming
Like
presence, man.
Sweetums won't even hug me, but everybody else wants to hug me.
Well, she don't know what she's
They
missing.
feel sorry for me or something. Why is that?
Go back to the other thing, you and Scott at Spoon.
A spoon?
Oh, oh my goodness.
Side joke.
Who is the big spoon and the little spoon?
No, we were talking about his convention coming up and booking rooms, things like that. And Scott
Oh,
Yeah.
Scott Bravo.
Scott
B?
says, I want Rick's room. And I went, what? And I want to sleep with you. No, you're not sleeping with me. Because
There's only one bed. We got to share it.
And I said, what is it about? I'm not even attractive to anybody. I mean,
Yeah, but it's not about being attractive. It's about the energy you put out.
What?
It's the energy, your aura.
I need a chaplain.
I'm here for you.
Here, you got some practice ahead of you.
All right.
But on a serious note, we got 5 minutes. On a serious note, though, like the thing that I've noticed, like, is I'm also a part of 12-step program too, AA for drinking. Been sober for quite a while, but there's a term saying never say no, and that is true, to help people out. But however, from what I realized, that you got people that like the idea of getting help, but then when you present it to them, they still go right back to the same old thing. So like that's where having boundaries and also being aware of compassion burnout, which that is a very real thing where it's like, I had a talk with a specific individual, like, I gotta, get my life together and get rid of, relationships and stuff. I'm like, yeah, because that's a distraction towards you and you don't need that person's toxicity affecting you, because I've seen it where, vets will get into relationships and they think that's going to make them whole and complete. It's like, no, you're just distracting yourself. You need to be away from all that stuff, sit with yourself, go talk to the proper people. And sometimes, sitting with yourself is terrifying because either start getting squirrely or, they start thinking of bad memories and all that stuff. But like, it is necessary. You have to, or else you are going to have, some issues. But when it comes to people of, clergy or helping out nature, compassion burnout's huge because like, you try to help someone 1 million times and then it ends up driving you crazy. So like, you help them out as much as you can within the boundary of you keeping your sanity. And if they mess up or whatever, or do something, it's like, all right, fine, I'm there for you, but I'm not going to invest all my resources. That's definitely expected in that whole realm.
We also know that it's not necessarily our will that's going to be done. It's God's will.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
all in God's time
Yeah.
too. So like, and I've realized that too, where like, I'm putting all forth my effort. Like, you do this. And then as soon as I back off and I don't care, then they're fine. I'm like, imagine that. So maybe it was about me learning patience and compassion. That's how God works, very mysteriously like that.
You've been pretty good with the patience with Rick.
I have.
It's been a few years, but
It's been working, but I'm sure he's been.
What?
I'm sure he's been patient with me too. So
What?
it's a two-way street. We've been helping each other out.
On that note, I got to put up with this
How much time we got?
I want
Less
to
than
thank you for coming on this show. Your message was phenomenal. You brought in a whole bunch of elements, the suicide element, the PTSD side of it, a war story that few have experienced. Your story is very unique. The fact that your family served all the way back to the Revolutionary War, all of these type of things, Shiloh, President Lincoln. I'm just joking about the Lincoln thing. But I want to say thank you
Just
for
don't end
being
up like
here.
that.
Fantastic. It's an
Appreciate
awesome show. I want to thank our listeners. Roger That Chronicles. Come and be part of the conversation. Come join us. And as you can tell, our mission is to service veterans by talking about issues that are specific to our perspectives, the veteran perspective. Thank you for being here.
And as we come to a close, I would like to thank our producers again, 2 and 6 Net. And if you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button, the bell notification for future videos. That helps out with the algorithm, and share this video as much as possible. And you could also check us out on Twitch, Twitter, Apple, Spotify, hit them all. I want to thank Drew Cappuccino and the Kelsey, the apprentice behind the screen there. And
if you're a veteran and you haven't come home yet, find yourself American Legion, VFW, Marine Corps League, Fleet Reserve Association, Navy League, AMVETS. There's a bunch of different veterans groups that are out there. Find one that you feel comfortable with and start hanging out. You might be able to learn something as far as your VA benefits and things that would be helpful to your family, but more importantly, the camaraderie of hanging around with other vets that get you. We'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Awesome. And if you want to sponsor our show, please assist us in sustaining this, growing it, and so on. But we need sponsorship as well. So get in contact with 216 Net.
No double dogs. I say Sapper Phi.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Booyah.
Booyah.
Cool.
I would say